surprised if I went on WWE.com and read about his release, and WWE.com wishing him all the best in his future endeavors. I know himself and Melina were victims of a bit of unprofessionality when they were a manager-valet couple on both Raw and SmackDown, and they were separated because of their unprofessionalism, and they both had to embark on singles careers, very successful singles careers if I do say so myself. Melina winning the Women's and Divas Championship multi-times. I'll never forget the time Melina returned from an injury and won the Divas Championship from Jillian Hall in less than 30 seconds. I'll never forget that. Another individual Melina worked closely with on SmackDown, Jillian Hall, as her image consultant. Jillian would go on to be the image consultant of people like the longest reigning SmackDown champion in history, JBL, another individual who I had the privilege of interviewing. I've also had Jillian Hall make small appearances on some of the radio shows I've had the privilege of hosting and guest hosting over the years. I believe Jillian Hall said her famous quote, "I know you want me," on one of my radio programs several years ago. But to say they weren't accomplished wrestlers, if John Morrison is unfortunately released, and Melina now released, waiting for her no-compete clause to expire and run out, to say they weren't accomplished talents would be lying to all of you. John Morrison and Melina were phenomenal talents for WWE, and that's the problem with WWE and their booking. It seems like it's a form of punishment when you're booked to lose, when they take a phenomenal talent like John Morrison, who could easily be in contention for the WWE Championship on Raw or SmackDown. They take a talent like John Morrison, a guy who puts me in mind of a young Shawn Michaels back as far as 1993 with the cocky, arrogant attitude. John Morrison could be an awesome heel nowadays with his gimmick, but I think that, when they take you and they book you to lose week after week after week, kind of like they were doing with Ted DiBiase for the better part of 2011, it seems like it's a form of punishment. It's like you're not living up to what we had expected from you, and your release is unfortunately coming in the next couple of weeks or several months, and it's unfortunate. John Morrison is going to be a release that I'm not going to be shocked over. I won't be as shocked over John Morrison's release as much as I was Melina's release. And Gail Kim is another one who I could go on here about for hours. Gail Kim is another individual who came into WWE back in 2004, won the Women's Championship in a Battle Royal in her first match in WWE, and now she's going back to the independents and probably will land another contractual deal with TNA Wrestling. And Melina, I hope Melina takes advantage of an opportunity, if an opportunity is given to her, to be a part of TNA Wrestling by Dixie Carter or Eric Bischoff, because Melina would be a fantastic addition to the Knockouts division. And a question I have for the listening audience is, do you think Melina would fit in well with talents like Angelina Love and Velvet Sky and Taylor Wilde and the other TNA Knockouts? Do you think Melina would be a fantastic addition to the TNA Knockouts division? I, for one, 100% believe she would be if she was given the opportunity. And if there ever was a door of opportunity that had opened up for TNA Wrestling, the opportunity to sign Melina is that door I'm talking about. In a recent column I posted in our column archives for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke, where I commented briefly on Melina's release, I talked about how a door of opportunity had swung open unexpectedly for TNA Wrestling, and the opportunity I was making reference of is the opportunity to sign Melina to a TNA Knockouts contract, because I think she would work well with talents like Angelina Love or Velvet Sky or Taylor Wilde or any other of the TNA Knockouts. If she was paired up in a match with them, I'd love to see Melina versus Winter. It'd be a match that I'd love to see. I've seen some of Winter's work on TNA Wrestling. And the door of opportunity that I was talking about in the column was the fact that TNA Wrestling had been presented with a very fantastic opportunity to add Melina to the already impressive TNA Knockouts division, which I commented on for the State of Women's Wrestling address that I did for YouTube.com. Jonathan Clarke 22 was ultimately far more superior than WWE's Divas division. A title shaped like a butterfly is not going to be able to compete with TNA's Knockouts division, a compilation of phenomenal female talent. Never. I really don't think a title shaped like a butterfly is ever going to be able to compete with TNA's Knockout division and the TNA Knockouts Tag Team division. There's no way in hell of that ever happening. You can find those videos, as you can find this one, on YouTube.com, Jonathan Clarke 22. Another thing that I talked about in my column for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke was the fact that I had spoken to the individual who had trained Melina back several years ago, right around the time he was getting ready to launch the Empire Wrestling Federation. You can Google that federation on Facebook and Twitter, and you can also Google their official website. The Empire Wrestling Federation is the company Jesse Hernandez is running right now. He's getting a bit of financial help and assistance with that from some American talent and American promoter as well, who also appeared here on my show. Another thing that I made acknowledgement of was the fact that he actually trained Melina, but in the last few years of Melina's career, he actually stopped following Melina's progress in WWE because he believed that WWE were using her to her fullest potential, but they weren't using her well enough. Now, she's a very accomplished wrestler, but I think that I'm somewhat in agreement with Jesse Hernandez on that statement, because it seemed like Melina was really being used to her fullest potential from, I'd say, about 2005 right until 2009, and then they kind of stopped using her. I'll never forget the match she had at the 2009 Royal Rumble with Beth Phoenix, where she actually came out as the winner of the match, and I believe on that night she became the women's champion for a third or fourth time. So, you know, in 2009, I think they really stopped pushing her after January. I thought they started to slow down with her character from, I'd say, March up until May or June of 2011, and then she stopped making appearances on Raw and SmackDown television, and I guess she was just used for live events, booked to lose, no doubt, on live events, and now they've finally made the decision to release her. I don't know any information on her contract. I don't know if her contract had reached the expiration date or not, and they just kind of decided to let her go. But it was kind of an unfortunate thing to have to read. And now reading on ProWrestling.com about John Morrison getting ready to leave WWE and probably head to TNA Wrestling or back to the independents is unfortunate too, considering the fact that John Morrison, prior to coming to WWE, looked all over the states for help and assistance into making it into a major professional wrestling organization, and he finally landed a contract with WWE Development, was on Tough Enough, and his career progressed from there, kind of like how The Miz has the same story. They both got their start, both John Morrison and The Miz did, courtesy of reality TV, MTV's Tough Enough, and their careers took off. They're former tag team champions, for Christ's sake. But, it's unfortunate how WWE really treats their talent. Now, they booked them to lose on the last few months of their career, and it's just one of those unfortunate things that we're seeing every day. WWE always commits a unfortunate and unforgivable sin of booking talents ineffectively and booking them to lose. Ted DiBiase is another one who I could go on and on and on about. He's a release waiting to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if I read statements on WWE.com about Morrison and DiBiase being released. And there are a number of other people who are not being utilized to their fullest potential that WWE keep hanging on to. I mean, Evan Bourne or Kofi Kingston could easily be in contention for the WWE title. If not John Morrison, Kingston or Bourne could be a contender for the WWE Championship, because they're able to electrify the crowd, kind of like The Rock was able to do for the better part of 1998 until 1999, and it's just unfortunate, Melina first made acknowledgement of this on her Facebook and her Twitter, and in this corner with Jonathan Clarke talks a little bit about Melina's release for the first time. You can find the column in the archives of the column. There are over 200 of them archived on our website, and I also made acknowledgement of how you could find information on Melina's release by finding her on Facebook or following her on Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Clarke1 HEW Entertainment, or you can join the conversation by adding us on Facebook at facebook.com Jonathan Clarke. Our Facebook right now currently has over 715 friends at the present time. That is absolutely unbelievable. I'll give you an update on our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube, our MySpace, and our official website after we play the Tiffany clip and a bit of music for you. What you're going to hear in this Tiffany clip that I found on YouTube the other day when I was on YouTube looking through several videos is you're going to hear Tiffany's true feelings towards her release from WWE. She gets a bit emotional when Mosh from Monday Night Mayhem asks her about her release and kind of questions her. I think that Tiffany was kind of put on the spot about her release. She says she has no acknowledgement of the fact that WWE had any kind of bitterness towards her, and she wasn't expecting to be released. She knew that she was on the verge of being suspended, and when she was home suspended, she kind of had her fingers crossed the whole time, kind of pleading, saying please take me back, please take me back, please take me back. And she didn't know who made the decision to not take her back to WWE. It seems like when she was suspended, they kind of just decided to let her go and said the hell with it. Kind of like the Ken Kennedy situation from a few years ago when Ken Kennedy screwed up in about a 10-man tag match, and Vince McMahon said, the hell with you, you're gone. And Kennedy went on to make a phenomenal name for himself in TNA Wrestling as the TNA champion, for Christ's sake. As I said, TNA Wrestling continuing to be a door of opportunity for talents that aren't utilized to their fullest potential in WWE. You're going to hear a lot of stuff in this Tiffany clip, and the reason why I'm playing this Taryn Fennell clip that I found on YouTube the other day is just to kind of put into perspective for you and, if anything, illustrate for you how emotionally connected the divas are, more so than the male talent, the superstars are, to their jobs. I, for one, believe that divas will always be more emotionally connected to their jobs and connecting to the fans more so than the superstars will, because I think they're more drawn to what they do, and I think this ties in well with Melina's release and other divas who have been a victim of that unfortunate call from John Laurinaitis informing them that their services are no longer needed in WWE. You can follow Taryn Fennell on Twitter and on Facebook as you can Melina. Here's what Taryn Fennell had to say about her release when she was questioned about it on Monday Night Mayhem. I found this on YouTube the other day and thought I would play it for you. She gets a bit emotional and a bit shaken up from it. But take a listen to what she had to say. It's very informational. It kind of really illustrates for you the whole story behind being released and what happens to you emotionally inside. You get a little bit shaken up. But just take a listen to what Taryn had to say. It's very, very heartfelt.
There's obviously a lot of strain on relationships in professional wrestling and in sports and entertainment, and the odds are always against the couples that are together. Your perception of how things are going to be going forward from him leading into WrestleMania on the SmackDown side of things?
Yeah, I mean, that actually brings tears to my eyes. We are best friends, and I'm sorry. And we love traveling.